Is it safe to travel to Mexico City right now? This is a question that comes up in nearly every conversation I have with travelers who are curious about Mexico, and it's a fair one. Because no matter how many stories you hear about the art, the food, and the vibrancy of life in Mexico City, there is always that hesitation. People want to know if they're stepping into a destination that is safe, or if the headlines they've read about crime and cartels in other parts of Mexico should give them pause. I'm Stephen with the Travel Safety Network, and I've spent over 25 years traveling the world in industrial safety and risk management. I've worked in some of the most complex environments on the planet, helping people navigate risks that most travelers will never see. And now, I've turned my focus to travel safety, because I believe that the more we understand about a destination, the more confidently and responsibly we can experience it. Today, we're going to take an honest look at what it means to visit Mexico City in 2025. We'll talk about how the safety picture here is different from other parts of Mexico, what you need to know about petty crime and scams, and how to enjoy the city's spectacular culinary scene without running into health problems. Stay tuned to the end, because I'll share something that often surprises people, a detail about Mexico City that can completely change how you experience your time there. If you've spent any time researching travel to Mexico, you know that the country's reputation is complex. Mexico is not a monolith. It is a vast and diverse nation, with regions that feel as different from one another as entire countries. The beach resorts of the Riviera Maya, the mountain towns of Oaxaca, the deserts of the north, and the capital itself all have their own unique rhythms and safety considerations. One of the most common misconceptions is that travel warnings issued by governments apply equally across the entire country. But if you look closely at the advisories from the US State Department, Global Affairs Canada, the UK's Foreign Office, and Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, you'll see a very clear distinction. Many of the highest level warnings focus on states that border the US, or regions where organized crime groups are active. Places like Sinaloa, Michoacán, Colima, and Guerrero have experienced significant violence linked to cartels. These are not places most tourists visit, but they often make headlines that shape perceptions about the whole country. Mexico City is different. As the largest city in North America, it is in many ways more comparable to New York or Los Angeles than it is to smaller Mexican towns. The capital is the country's political and cultural center, and while it does face challenges with crime, it also benefits from a concentration of resources, a visible police presence, and a level of infrastructure that makes it far easier for travelers to move safely. That doesn't mean you can drop your guard entirely, but it does mean that the risks here are more often about petty crime, pickpocketing, bag snatching, and scams than the kind of targeted violence seen in some other regions. If you're comparing Mexico City to an all-inclusive resort in Cancun or Los Cabos, you're really talking about two very different types of travel. In the resorts, your experience is designed to be contained. Security is tight, and guests spend most of their time on the property. You are unlikely to encounter much petty crime because access is controlled, and the resort has every incentive to keep you comfortable and safe. In Mexico City, you are immersed in the life of the city the moment you step out of your hotel. That's part of the magic. Waking up to the sounds of traffic and church bells, wandering neighborhoods full of murals and markets. But it also means you need to be aware of your surroundings in a way that you might not in a resort environment. Let's talk about what that looks like in practical terms. The most common issues travelers report in Mexico City are pickpocketing and theft. This tends to happen in busy areas like the metro, the historic center around the Zócalo, and large public events. If you've ever visited any major city, this won't be unfamiliar. In fact, Mexico City's rates of petty theft are lower than some European capitals. But the crowds can be dense, and thieves are skilled at distraction. You may encounter scams that take different forms. Someone offering unsolicited help with your luggage, people claiming to be officials who ask to see your passport, or drivers who insist the meter is broken. These situations are avoidable if you plan ahead. Use reputable transportation services, agree on prices before you get in a cab, and keep your identification secured. One of the reasons Mexico City feels safer than people expect is that locals themselves take these precautions as part of daily life. You'll notice that people are mindful of their phones and wallets, especially on public transport. There's a shared understanding that you have to be alert, but that doesn't mean you have to be fearful. Health and hygiene are another area where preparation makes a big difference. One of the first questions people ask is whether it's safe to drink the water. The short answer is no. Tap water in Mexico City is not considered potable. Even locals often rely on bottled or filtered water for drinking and cooking. Fortunately, bottled water is cheap and widely available, and most restaurants and hotels will use purified water and ice. When it comes to food, Mexico City is a paradise. This is a city where you can have a life-changing meal in a Michelin-starred restaurant one night, and some of the best tacos you'll ever taste from a street stall the next. But food safety is worth thinking about, especially if you have a sensitive stomach. Street food is part of the culture here, and avoiding it entirely means missing out on one of the most authentic experiences you can have. The key is to look for stalls with high turnover, where you can see food being cooked fresh. If something looks like it's been sitting in the sun for hours, trust your instincts. Many travelers ease into street food gradually, starting with cooked items rather than raw garnishes. Another important factor is air quality. Mexico City sits in a high-altitude basin, and pollution can be an issue, especially during the dry season. If you have respiratory conditions, you may want to consult your doctor before you go and check air quality forecasts while you're there. Most visitors don't experience more than mild irritation, but it's something to be aware of. The travel advisories for Mexico City are nuanced. The U.S. State Department notes that while crime is present, it is generally less severe than in many other parts of Mexico. They recommend exercising increased caution, which is the same level they apply to cities like Paris or Rome. Global Affairs Canada echoes this perspective, advising travelers to be vigilant in public spaces and avoid displaying signs of wealth. The UK's Foreign Office points out that while violent crime exists, it rarely affects tourists who take basic precautions. Australia's Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade offers similar advice. Stay aware, plan your movements, and use reputable transportation. For women traveling alone, Mexico City can feel both exhilarating and a little intimidating. Catcalling and unwanted attention do happen, especially in certain neighborhoods or late at night. Dressing modestly and projecting confidence tends to reduce this, and many women find that locals are quick to step in if a situation feels uncomfortable. Ride-sharing apps are widely used and considered safer than hailing a taxi on the street. For LGBTQ+ travelers, Mexico City is actually one of the most progressive places in Latin America. The city has legalized same-sex marriage, and there is a thriving LGBTQ+ community, with bars, cafes, and events that are welcoming to all. That said, public displays of affection can still attract attention, and it's wise to be mindful of your surroundings, especially outside the central neighborhoods. If you've never visited Mexico City, it can be hard to picture just how much this place has to offer. This is a city of art and culture on a world-class scale, from the murals of Diego Rivera to the ancient ruins of Teotihuacan just outside the city limits. It's a city of contrasts, where you can explore the sleek galleries of Polanco in the morning and wander the bohemian streets of Coyoacan in the afternoon. So is it safe to travel to Mexico City? The most honest answer is that it depends on how you prepare. If you do your homework, stay aware of your surroundings, and respect the local customs, Mexico City is as safe as any major destination in the world. It demands a little more attention and awareness, but it gives back so much in return. And here's the surprise I promised you. Despite all the perceptions about safety, Mexico City has been recognized as one of the top culinary capitals on the planet. In recent years, it has quietly become a magnet for chefs and food lovers who come not just for the street food, but for a restaurant scene that rivals anything in Paris or Tokyo. If you're willing to look past the headlines, you'll discover a city that is dynamic, creative, and unforgettable. I'm Steven with the Travel Safety Network. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with anyone thinking about traveling to Mexico City. And stay tuned for more videos where I'll help you explore the world safely, confidently, and with a sense of wonder that every great journey deserves. Until next time, stay aware, stay prepared, and remember, safety is your travel superpower.